On behalf of the Ho Center for Buddhist Studies, it's my great pleasure to introduce this evening's speaker, Julia Huang. Julia Huang is a professor of anthropology at Tsinghua University in Taiwan. She's published on a number of topics, but she's probably best known for her book, Charisma and Compassion, which is the first monograph on the Tzu Chi Foundation and established her reputation as really the world's authority on the Tzu Chi Foundation, which is one of the most dynamic of these modernist Buddhist organizations that has innovated in clothing, in healthcare, in disaster relief, in language, and as we're going to find out today, in the practice of cadaver donation, the subject of her talk today, which is titled, Dying to Give Cadaver Donations for Medical Education in a Contemporary Buddhist Movement. So please join me in welcoming Professor Julia Huang.
Thank you, John, for such a generous introduction, and thank you, the Ho Center, for hosting me this year and also inviting me to give this talk. And thank you all for coming here today. I know this is a very difficult time in the semester, so I really appreciate that. And I know we have smaller number, and I'm sure we're going to have a better quality of discussion. Dying to give. Okay, let me begin with a small anecdote. In the summer of 1999, I was conducting ethnographic fieldwork as a volunteer at the Buddhist Tzu Chi Hospital in Hualien, Taiwan. One morning, while I was meandering around around my assigned wards in the general hospital. Okay, now I can see. The head of social work office, Miss Yan, a lifelong volunteer, ran from downstairs to find me. She spoke firmly and with a subdued excitement. Quickly, quickly, there's a corpse donor who just passed away. Quickly, we're going to recite the name of Buddha for her. You come join us right away. You're so blessed. This is such an unusual chance that hardly happens once every 1,000 years. 千载难逢. You are so blessed. She grabbed my hand and rushed me downstairs with her to the first floor and then out to the medical school. Other volunteers already formed two columns along the corridor, all with joined palm and reciting out loud Namo Amitofo, Nama Amitabha, devotion to the Amitabha Buddha. When the corpse arrived from the hospital, the chanting intensified and many of us began to cry. I peered through the glass and saw the embalming machine started. Miss Yan came to the front, calling all to bow with joined palms to salute to the corpse, Wen Xun, and ended the chanting. The donor was an ordained Buddhist nun who died of cancer and was survived by 3 children. The next morning, at the monastery of the Buddhist organization that runs the hospital, I saw her children dining at the central table with the leader of the Buddhist Foundation behind the hospital, the Venerable Zheng Yan. In the following few days, I met the children and participated in a few chanting sessions with them. I learned that the donation was eventually incomplete because one of the donor's siblings dreamed about the donor crying about her corpse being mistreated. I never followed through. I didn't know what to do with this entry in my field note until recent years. In retrospect, I realized that I was participating in a moment of a thriving movement of cadaver donations for medical education, a movement that was called A Surge of Cadavers by the Wall Street Journal in 2009. The hospital is called the Buddhist Tzu Chi Hospital. It is one of the several general hospitals across Taiwan founded and run by the Buddhist Tzu Chi Foundation. Tzu Chi literally means compassion relief. It's a Buddhist humanitarian organization run and supported by a lay movement under the monastic order of their founder and leader, the Venerable Zheng Yan, born in 1937. Tzu Chi is perhaps one of the largest Chinese Buddhist charity in the world, having branches in over 42 countries and delivering relief to disaster victims around the world, building post-catastrophic villages in Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and Haiti, receiving national and international praise. When Tzu Chi founded its medical school in 1994, they were told that as a latecomer among the 7 medical schools in Taiwan, they'd be on their own and for procuring the cadavers for the foundational course of gross anatomy. Since until then, the only and the scanty supply was unclaimed dead bodies. Tzu Chi received its first voluntary corpse donation in 1995. Within 3 years, over 3,800 people signed up, and 127 corpses were received and 48 transferred to other medical schools. The total number of corpses Tzu Chi received was 5 times of the total number of 23 cadavers received by the National Center for Corpse Distribution in the same period from 1995 to 1998. By 2015, the total number of donors signed up at Tzu Chi is over 36,000. What's worth noting in Tzu Chi is not only the sheer magnitude of the cadaver donation, but also the distinctive practice of encouraging communication between the donor's family and the medical staff, a practice in contrast to the privacy abided by involuntary donation efforts in the United States, such as the Willed Body Program. Indeed, the Buddhist Medical College in Taiwan formally created bonds between the donor's family and the medical students and faculty who dissect his or her their body. The cadaver keeps its real name, is introduced in print and on the university website, and is respectfully addressed throughout the endeavor as corpse teacher, 大体老师. Each corpse teacher is solemnly commemorated by ceremonies before and after the dissection, led by the university president and attended by the faculty and students of the medical school, the donor's family and friends, as well as a number of Tzu Chi monastics and lay followers. Part of the ash from cremation is placed in an individual urn permanently stored in the university's splendid columbarium named the Great Giving or Equanimity Ubekha Hall, 大舍堂, honoring the donation as an act of one of the Buddha's 4 immeasurable minds, equanimity, 舍. Together, the corpse faculty are referred to as silent mentors, 无语良师. The influence is expanding. Other medical schools in Taiwan have also begun to hold commemoration for the donors, and there is no more shortage of cadavers for the gross anatomy. At the same time, Tzu Chi has been accepting medical students and faculty members from China, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand to participate in the surgery simulation as well as the ceremonies of silent mentors. The vignette above gives one a quick glance on the enthusiasm for the will and the act of giving and the tremendous focus on the dead body from the devotees of the Buddhist group. At the same time, the eventual ending of an incomplete donation, which is not uncommon, also tells a bit about the difficulties a donor and or a family may encounter. In traditional Chinese culture, one's body is bequeathed from the parents, and the treatment of the corpse may have consequences on the surviving family members. This is why I chose the title for my talk today, Dying to Give. I hope to convey at least 2 layers of the meaning. First, while death can be a moment, legally, clinically, or even phenomenologically, giving one's most fundamental and the final gift, the dead body, is a process in the Tzu Chi's context that lasts for a range of time from a few months to several years. I would describe the structure of a cadaver donation in this Buddhist movement in hope that to bring in the temporal dimension for considering death and dying. Second, as the colloquial meaning of the term to be dying to depict, I wish to highlight the appeal, the motivation, and the resolution for donating one's dead body. So in the minutes that follow, I will give you a brief background of the Buddhist revival in Taiwan and Tzu Chi, and also putting the Tzu Chi medical mission of medical care in context, and then positioning the body donation, especially the cadaver donations, in its mission of medical care. And finally, I would like to discuss what it means, why it is dying to give, and some remarks on what I thought about the multiple discourses joined to form this silent mentor. So Tzu Chi is not the only large-scale and transnational Buddhist modern organization originated in Taiwan. The two other major organizations are Foguangshan, Buddha's Light Mountain, and Fagushan, Dharma Drum Mountain. These three organizations have much in common. First, all of the three orders are often seen as exemplars of humanistic Buddhism, Renjian Fojiao. This worldly path first traced by Tai Xu around the 1920s in China and significantly articulated and propagated by Ying Shun in Taiwan. This path introduced a new personhood based on the notion of Bodhisattva. As Scott Pacey explains, he sees that in the new personhood, the average individual can all be Bodhisattva. The Bodhisattva became, I quote, a model person. Furthermore, such individuals could create a pure land, although this time within the world of human beings. Just as the Pure Lands became models for society, Bodhisattva became a model for its inhabitants. And second, each group is founded and led by a charismatic leader, and each of the three groups runs a large-scale modern organizational network consisting of monasteries, secular institutions, including universities and nonprofit foundations, supported by a large lay following in Taiwan. So this is a distribution of the three groups. This is the Dharma Drum Mountain, and this is the Foguangshan Buddha Light Mountain, and this is Tzu Chi. And third, the three groups are similar in the timing since about 1990s, scale with overseas branches in 80 to 47 countries, and the Taiwanese and Chinese constituency of global development. Tzu Chi distinguishes itself from the other two organizations in its grassroots leadership, an emphasis on lay followers, and a tremendous emphasis on its secular humanitarian mission. Tzu Chi's website often lists the Tzu Chi mission as including charity, medicine, education, culture, international relief, bone marrow donation, environmental protection, and community volunteering. Together, these 8 projects are called footprints, modeling upon the Buddha's venerable footprints in the Buddhist tradition. Its founder and leader is the Venerable Zheng Yan, a Mahayana Buddhist nun who commands great charisma. Most followers trace their conversion to her personal appeal. Zheng Yan came from a mixture of religious backgrounds. She first left home to become a nun through Taiwanese indigenous Buddhism and was later ordained in the Chinese Buddhist tradition through the Venerable Ying Shun. After being inspired to find this worldly approach through the Japanese translation of the Lotus Sutra, she was compelled to do charity when she was challenged by 3 missionizing Catholic nuns. In other words, Zheng Yan is a charismatic figure in the contemporary multicultural moment, and her creation of Tzu Chi is a grassroots and Buddhist response to the place and era in which she lived. Zheng Yan preaches on classic Buddhist texts, the Lotus Sutra 37 Aids to Enlightenment, the Sutra of the Healing Buddha, and the scripture of parents' unrequited kindness. And in 2009, she announced Tzu Chi to be a distinctive lineage. In her book establishing the Tzu Chi lineage, 真实之路 the road to truth. Zheng Yan states that the point of departure for Tzu Chi is the Four Noble Truths: suffering, arising, succession, and the path. The source for Buddhist sutras for Tzu Chi lineage is the Lotus Sutra, and the creation of Tzu Chi was intended to follow the Sutra of the innumerable meanings of the Lotus Sutra. The breakthrough seemingly Tzu Chi has made in Buddhist charity is not only in terms of scale, but also in terms of a reworking of the traditional concepts of Buddhist charity, field of blessings, and the six perfections. Tzu Chi sees its mission as a field of blessings. Fu Tian harkens back to the Buddhist charity in the Tang Dynasty of medieval China. Tzu Chi's field of blessings invites all benevolent people of the world to cultivate. It is therefore an expansion of the field of blessing with the emphasis on collective mobilization. Moreover, whoever comes to Tzu Chi is thus invited to embark on Tzu Chi's path for becoming a bodhisattva. Zheng Yan declared that the career of a Tzu Chi adherent is a process of pursuing the six perfections on bodhisattva's path: charity, 布施, morality, 持戒, patience, 忍辱, diligence, 精进, meditation, 禅定, and wisdom, 智慧. By becoming a Tzu Chi member with the basic requirement of monetary donation and volunteer labor, one begins practicing the first perfection, charity. Adherents then follow the Tzu Chi 10 precepts so as to pursue the second perfection, morality, and in turn overcomes all personal and social challenges to earn the title of commissioner. These are commissioners. So as to practice patience. A commissioner persists in the pursuit of enlightenment and proselytizing, thus practicing diligence. A veteran commissioner shows commitment to Buddhism and the master's mission and thus practices meditation. Finally, he or she vows to follow Buddha and Dharma in every day and thus practices wisdom. So putting in the context of Buddhist references for Tzu Chi, it seems that the cadaver donations, or at least the honor of being installed in the Great Giving Hall, marks a full circle or highlights the Tzu Chi's mission in following the sixth perfection and the four immeasurable heart minds. Tzu Chi's personhood begins with giving or charity, generosity. And the movement itself began as, and has always been, an exemplar of kindness. Although it is unclear whether Tzu Chi's chronology of mission developed following the order of the four immeasurable minds, equanimity is the fourth immeasurable mind. It can be said that in the Tzu Chi or Zheng Yan's interpretation of Buddhism, giving one's body is more than an act of giving. It is a practice or pursuit, effort to trying to embody to attain the mind of equanimity. And as Zheng Yan and Tzu Chi emphasize, it requires not only the donor but also their families to practice. On the silk-covered Tzu Chi monastic made for the cadaver is sold 大悲心愿再来 Great merciful heart vows to return. So here, so that was the quick introduction to Tzu Chi. And as you understand now, the medical care is or medical mission is only one of the many missions or footprints Tzu Chi work. Tzu Chi ran an island-wide medical network, which includes several hospitals. And also they have Tzu Chi International Medical Association, TIMA, which is on par with Doctor Without Border. Elsewhere, I've discussed the history of how and why, the development of Tzu Chi's medical mission, what I call it scientific and sacramental, that how and why modern scientific and Western medical care is so important to Tzu Chi, and how Tzu Chi make the medical mission Buddhist. And so in the first stage, that I call it's a more, it's a sign, it's in a way like Tzu Chi use, Buddhism use medical science, Western medical science to upgrade their mission. And you see that in, it's blended, the creation of Tzu Chi is blended with all this, this set of themes, that from the hagiography of the founder to the creation of the group to the establishment of a general hospital and to the notion of Buddhist humanity. As recast through, and then later the second stage, they try to recast through the modern Buddhist meaning through modern Western medicalization, including especially the new personhood model of the Bodhisattva as a hospital volunteer and for organ and the cadaver donors. So the first stage, you talk about how Zheng Yan started vegetarian diet because her mother's illness, and then she became a nun after her father passed away, and she decided to start a medical care charity because of a tragedy from Aboriginal woman had a miscarriage. And then the second stage, we see Tzu Chi start Buddhismizing their medical mission. That one, I don't know, any one of you have been to Tzu Chi Hospital in Hualien? So that's what you will immediately see, the 佛陀问病图, the portrait of Buddha counseling sickness. The lobby is populated by patients, their families, and medical staff in white uniforms, as well as administrative staff in gray qipao, traditional Chinese dress, and women and men clad in dark yellow vests over dark blue uniforms. Those in vests are volunteers. The vest is called Little Kasaya, 小袈裟, and is a minor or preliminary form of monastic attire. The doctors are often referred to as great kings of medicine, 大医王, and the nurses, the learned persons in white clothes, 白衣大士, modeled upon the goddess of mercy, 观音. The entire hospital as the venue of witnessing and stopping human suffering is called a living version of a Chinese Buddhist canon, 大藏经. As the entry of the hospital illustrates, the second part of the development unfolds into a perpetuation of Buddhist teaching in medical practice. The process of shaping medical practice into a Buddhist sacramental practice is present in the campaigning for bodily donation. There are a total of 3 bodily donations in Tzu Chi medical charities. Organ for life transplant, bone marrow, and cadavers for medical education. Even before the completion of the Tzu Chi Hospital since around 1985, Zheng Yan has been campaigning for organ donation. Tzu Chi had about 200 donors by the 5th anniversary of the hospital's founding in 1991. Both my field work and the preliminary literature research on the topic today show that among the 3 body donations, organ donation is the least elaborated, publicized, and interpreted. During my research in the 1990s, I already saw commissioners holding organ donor cards. There are very few, if any, publications or public events featuring organ donation in Tzu Chi. Note that this may have to do with the larger structure for organ donation in Taiwan, although the legal framework for organ transplants enacted in 1987, a nationwide database and the distributing center, the Taiwan Organ Registry and Sharing Center, was not founded until 2002. The total number of organ donors in 2002 was only 150 for the entire nation. And as of today, it's over 280,000, which is about 1% of the population. So, always whenever I talk about this topic, people ask me about organ donations, and a lot of it really has to do with the structure condition in Taiwan. Tzu Chi official publications trace the origins of body donation to Buddha's offering his body to feed an animal. 布施, giving, charity, generosity is the first of the 6 perfections in the Buddhist path of cultivation as well as Tzu Chi's path. The model of giving one's own body, especially parts of it, goes all the way back to Buddha. Organ, bone marrow, and cadaver donation share 2 theological sources. The first one is Zheng Yan's words on the body. She said, a person has only the rights of usage to his or her own body and does not have the rights to ownership of the body. And the second source is the Sutra of Innumerable Meanings, Wu Liang Yi Jing, in chapter 1, Virtues, describes the Buddha's self-sacrifice. He abandoned all things hard to abandon, his treasures, wife and child, his country and his palace. Unsparing of his person and possessions, he gave all, his head, eyes, marrow, and brain to people as alms. So the other donation, bone marrow donation, transplant, Tzu Chi started as early as 1993, and by 2015 has collected almost 400,000, including about 10,000 from the United States volunteer donors. And they were able to claim that they are the largest database in Asia, and they even make a claim that for every 100 bone marrow donors around the world, at least 3 of them are Taiwanese. And the structure for the bone marrow donation is more similar to the cadaver donations, the multimedia focus and also the bond creating between the donor and the recipients, and also so several, but the cadaver donations still requires death for delivery. And Tzu Chi has taken the commemoration to the unusual level to create a distinctive genre, and that is silent mentors, mentors who teach with no language but their own bodies. So I have been asking around, including the director of the Medical Simulation Center, who is now the vice president of Tzu Chi University, and just what exactly is the origin of this genre of silent mentor. But no one could tell me, and as usual, everything will refer to Zheng Yan. But no one could tell me exactly who designed this, how it come about to this whole structure production of a silent mentor. We knew that Tzu Chi was rejected by the National Cadaver Distribution Center, and we knew that the Venerable Zheng Yan has sent the vice president to Japan to collect information. It seems that the beginning of the silent mentor came as a surprise when Miss Lin Huiming, made a phone call to the then president of Tzu Chi University in 1994. Miss Lin was born in 1941 in China and migrated to Taiwan at the age of 8. She suffered the various hardships of poverty, and she was diagnosed with cancer and then with terminal bone cancer in 1991. She went through radiotherapy and chemotherapy, and in 1993, she was hospitalized with a pleural effusion. Knowing her days were numbered, she told her physician that she would like to donate all of her organs. Unfortunately, she was told that her organs were not eligible for transplant. Disappointed, Miss Lin called the president of the Tzu Chi University, Tzu Chi University Hospital, Miss Li Mingliang, to say that she would like to donate her corpse when she dies. Mr. Li, President Li, designed the first donor agreement form for her. She passed away in February 1995 at the age of 54 and was immediately sent by the Tzu Chi Hospital to National Taiwan University Hospital because at the time Tzu Chi did not have the embalming equipment. On the ninth day after her death, her children held a funeral for her, bearing a coffin with containing her hat, dress, hair, and nails. After the dissection, Tzu Chi University completed her funeral with the remnants of her corpse in June 1996. According to her daughter, Miss Lin did not have any specific religious belief, let alone Buddhism or Tzu Chi. Her motivation was relatively straightforward. The human body is just a piece of smelly skin bag. After death, whether it's through cremation or burial, it's going to be useless. But if one donates the corpse, then it's turning death into life and making the useless the useful. So in her case, she was someone who suffered all her life and never had a chance to make any decision where to live, who to marry, and finally, the first time she could make a decision in her life was what she gonna do with her dead body. And so she called her children before she died, just said, I'm not asking your opinion, I'm just announcing this is what I'm going to do. But then the question is, how would one donor in 1995, could turn into 3,800 in 3 years? And this is where I think Tzu Chi's large-scale organization matters in the making of silent mentors. There are at least 3 major publications about corpse donation within the Tzu Chi community. One is the series of 无语良师 silent mentors published by Tzu Chi since 1996 and consists of 10 volumes by now, sometimes annually, sometimes biannually. And the second publication is the 当医生的老师 Becoming the Teacher of Physician. It's written by Hualien Tzu Chi Medical Center and the Tzu Chi University and published in 2008. As the title shows, just give you some background. In Taiwan, physician or hospital are esteemed. So when you become the teacher of the physician, it means something. And the most recent publication is 以身相许无语良师的生命教育 The Gift of the Body, the Life Education from the Silent Mentors by Ye Wenying in 2011. So as the publication goes, actually, it's, the more recent ones are more structured and all the biographies of the donors become more similar. And the earlier one is more sort of ethnographically rich in detail. And obviously it takes more than a book publications in Tzu Chi to make the production of a silent mentor. So I think the social organization for silent mentor involves several aspects. First, it takes the charismatic leader's interpretation of the gift of the body and also her monastic disciples to lead the ceremonies. And second, it takes a massive number of followers, volunteers promoting and responding to the cause and facilitating the process. And third, it takes medical school faculty and hospital staff coordinating to make the operation possible. From screening for eligible donors to preserving corpse to developing curriculum to organizing experiments and conferences, workshops, and to attending the ceremonies and sometimes to being interviewed on TV and in person and publishing reflections in print and to maintaining and updating the website for cadaver donations, including statistics, profiles, waiting status, and multimedia of photos and videos of at least 5 times. By now it's six times of ceremonies each year. And fourth, a cohort of students from Tzu Chi and its sister universities, such as the Zhongshan Daxue in Guangdong, to carry out the production for interviewing the family of the donors, to writing and delivering the donor's profile in speech with PowerPoint and the final installation, and also in print, and to participate in throughout the ceremony and experiments until the final installation of the ash into the columbarium. And finally, and perhaps the most important, the production of silent mentor involved the active participation of the donor's family and the corpse of the donor. So, in looking at the structure of the silent mentor, that there are several usually the prelude or preamble is in a few quite exceptional cases, the career of a silent mentor began when the donors almost all terminal. They were still alive. They were interviewed and videotaped after they signed the agreement. And for most cases, when the prospective donor or the donor's family contacts Tzu Chi for signing up for donation, the first step will be a visit from one of the 4 male volunteers. They are known as kind of a gatekeepers. And then upon death, the family will contact the medical simulation center, and then they will send one of these 4 volunteers to verify, to help the family for delivery. And like one of the volunteers talked to Mr. Hu, he's been serving as one of the 4 gatekeepers for over 10 years. Said if they could make it to the Tzu Chi hospital by 9 p.m., the nuns from the Tzu Chi abode would be there at the hospital to receive the donors and family, and will hold a chanting ceremony for 30 minutes upon arrival and before the corpse being preserved for either gross anatomy or simulation. The wait for gross anatomy is at least 3 years, and the wait for simulation range from 2 months to 1 year. And sometimes around 1 to 2 months before the simulation, students are told by the university to contact the family of their silent mentor for the incoming simulation. They were also given instructions about how to conduct the interview, what to wear, and do's and don'ts. After interview, they would write up a short profile of the mentor and make the PowerPoint of the profile of their silent mentor. So they were kind of giving the research methods, kind of interview methods before they went to conduct the interview. And then the major highlight would be the ritual process consisting of the 2 ceremonies. One is the opening ceremony, 启用典礼, and the commemoration consisting of the humanity ceremony, 人文典礼, which includes the Thanksgiving and the memorial 感恩追思典礼. And for the gross anatomy, the 2 ceremonies held apart about 6 months, 1 year. It's 1 semester. And the opening would be in September, and the commemoration in the following March. As for the simulation, the 2 are 5 days apart, and it's always. And always, the opening is always on Thursday, and the commemoration is on Wednesday. Always on Monday, and the 2 ceremonies sandwich the simulation experiments in between over a weekend, so as to accommodate according to Vice President and the physician's schedule. So the simulation center holds this ceremony like 6 times a year. So I will have many details about describing how all this, but I think the easiest way is I show you a video of it's a video. It's one of the workshop I participated. It's a video put on their website also for the family and giving away to the family.
笑声如菩萨化身，无怨无悔付出，只为众生，无忧无求，拓宽价值人生。你手落的举身，坚定的眼神，走遍天涯留下 您用大慈大悲精神富足，您用大喜精神温暖人间，您用大舍精神来圆满这一生。人间菩萨送您去，福缘欢喜接您来。听您的笑声，如菩萨化身，无怨无悔付出，只为众生，无忧无求，拓宽价值人生。您瘦弱的举声，坚定的眼神，走遍天涯，留下爱的见证，欢喜感恩，写下亮丽的人生。您用大慈大悲精神富足，您用大喜精神温暖人间，您用大舍精神来圆满这一生。此生非我有，勇气在人间。感恩您用大慈大悲精神富足，您用大喜精神温暖人间，您用大舍精神来圆满这一生。人间菩萨送您去，福缘欢喜接您来。皎月知我愿，传灯去他乡。我这不能足，心境洒馨香。皎月知我愿，传灯去他乡。我这不能足，心境洒馨香。是谁敲响了记忆的钟？只能让风把心里随远送。百转千回头，依然遥远一个多年的梦。就让风把消息随送，在这一
一海辽阔，有缘同航，慈爱为帆，虚心为桨，智慧生体谅，欢喜是国安，齐心向前方。心灵光芒有缘同长，慈爱为旗，热心为章，探索生活风，欢喜是阳光，齐心同成长，是愿将心比心相，众生平安，皆我有老同庄，是愿众生为知己，一病一喜，一得平安共享。
This is the most, I talk about. I mean, it's Professor Zheng, he said that many universities asked him how to model upon whether they could also do, following Tzu Chi's model, but none of them could agree to do this suturing, stitching together. And it takes a lot of manpower, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money to do all this. So dying to give. So by now you will see how much the effort it is and how many people are involved and in this sanctification of the dead body. And dying to give, that I will not talk about that. It actually starts earlier, before the commemoration. And that there were many things that when a donor, a prospective donor, that they would do in preparing for donation, such as some of them would decline medical treatments, especially surgeries or any cuts from a tracheotomy, and usually they are after diagnosis of terminal. But in one case, I actually talked to him, the donor is resolved to enter the career even without confirming terminal. And the second, they were sure their family members about their decision for donation. And third, they become objectifying their body and perceiving their own dying body as corpse, speaking to, through, and for, the dying body, accepting interviews, granting audience. The one the most circulated and quoted is Mr. Lee's, his words. Li Hezheng, he says, when you perform the first cut on me, my wish is finally granted. And then finally they would make arrangements, such as transportation, because Tzu Chi only accept body in Taiwan. So in one extreme case, she was a dentist in New Jersey. She's been a lifetime devotee. She was a lifetime devotee, and her husband knew that she wanted to have her wish come true. So she was already terminal deteriorated, so he bought 9 seats in the airplane to transfer her back to Taiwan in the airplane, and so she could pass away in Hualien and donate her body. So there were several arrangements to do in Dying to Give. And the other side of Dying to Give is how much the will and the involved, not just the donor, but also the family. And in most cases, it's the surviving family to face the challenge, making the arrangement of delivery, facing the criticism from other family members about being unfilial or mistreating the beloved ones of their body. And finally, perhaps the most important is enduring the long wait for the dissection and commemoration. Such as this one story of the daughter of Song Wang Ame. She was the Arabic teacher. That her speech at the memorial, she just she stepped on the podium and and leaned to the microphone and spoke forcefully. The first thing she said was, "My mother slaughtered pig. 我妈妈是杀猪的." And today, exactly 1 year after she passed, her dream of ever become a teacher finally come true. She began recounting the 3 challenges they faced in completing her mother's wish. First was when her mother was in the ICU and the physician told them that she needs tracheotomy. And she said, "I prayed and prayed, please don't take away her wish." And fortunately, she ended up having intubation. Then a couple of days later, the physician told us that she suffered edema. We prayed and prayed, and luckily it was resolved and that she could still donate. And finally, after she passed, we need to make to Hualien from Taichung, which is the western side of central Taiwan, in 8 hours. Unfortunately, the shorter way, which is northbound, the Suhua route, was closed. And we had no choice but to ask the ambulance to take the difficult Central Cross Island Road. Fortunately, we made it to Hualien in time. I knew my mother had never been to Hualien in her life, so I came to see her every week during the first 100 days. I don't want her to be alone in Hualien. So this was, you can see how much a family had to endure, and a lot of things may not have factual, but it becoming a concern, like widespread among the family, such as the tracheotomy. It actually, for gross anatomy, you are still eligible. And also, like, there are some very specific things, such as 8 hours. Like almost every family member, they talk about the 8 hours, the 8 hours, the 8 hours. And finally, I had a chance to ask Professor Zhen, why 8 hours? Is it because of Buddhism? He said, no, it's me. He said, it's only applied to Taiwan's weather and temperature and humidity. And he said, it must be 8 hours for the body still be usable. But it really creates a great pressure for all the families. So why do they donate? One of the things is I've been reading all these biographies from the publication and trying to figure out what their motivation. I haven't finished yet. One thing is at least 1/3, if not half, of the donors are not Tzu Chi followers. They were not. So, such as like the volume in 2008, 18 out of 30, they were not Tzu Chi followers. There are 4 types of motivation. One is mostly when they were terminal, they're diagnosed with terminal disease, and start thinking about what they want to do with their body, and as an individual, not necessarily for religious reason. And it's being useful, and they want to make it useful and thus meaningful. And many donors, quite a few of them, make it very clear that since they said that they died because the medical science failed to cure them, so they wish that they hope that their donation to medical science, the donating their body, would help the improving medical science to cure other people, to find out why they die. And second, there have been this is for Tzu Chi followers, if they have been disciple followers, and always think this is the right way to do, and make it very clear when they were alive. And third would be they heard about Tzu Chi program, and a lot of them saw it on TV, and then signed up before they even became terminal, when they were healthy or had other crisis in life already. I mean, and this type of donor usually also talk about the dead bodies as useless, and then they want to make arrangement by themselves rather than leaving to their children. And finally, it's only happening in early stages, is sudden death, dying young. The parents that they will want to make the short-lived body continued. So finally, that the role of Buddhism is quite nuanced. The gift of the body genre, according to Onuma, as she calls it, is being recorded in Buddhism as early as the 4th century. Here she writes, head, eyes, flesh, and blood. The land of northwestern India itself was a virtual map of Bodhisattva's gruesome gifts. He offered his body as food, as drink, as medicine to cure all ills, as raft to hang on to in pursuit of the other shore, as ransom for the life of others, or for no good reason at all, but merely because someone had asked, and always with the same motivation, to benefit other being out of selflessness and compassion, to fulfill the perfection of generosity, dana, paramita, and ultimately to win the highest estate of Buddhahood. But the bodies of silent mentors are ultimately tortured and commemorated as Sheshen Pusa, the body, or as James Ben interpreted, is the self-giving bodhisattva. The irony is the silent mentor narrates actually restored the full body, the individual body, and a lively individual identity of the donor, which is in stark contrast to the original Buddhist meaning for donation, disembodied as selfless. But would it be that the self or the body has already been different from the life when it was alive? And here we see about 3 discourses of body are involved. The first one is Chinese body, and the second is medical body, and the third one is the Buddhist body. The Chinese body belongs to more than the individual. It is bequeathed from one's parents, and how the dead body is handled will have consequences on the surviving family member. Filial piety is how and why the body matters. Complementing the Chinese body is that of the Western medical body, a knowledge of the body founded on the anatomy and an epistemology of the body that has strong roots in the dualism between the body and the mind. The medical body is both the subject of diagnostics and treatments, and the source of suffering and the knowledge. Anatomy as the foundation for science for suffering is how and why the body matters. The Chinese body and the medical discourses complement each other, at least in the case of Tzu Chi. The Chinese body is to be protected and cured as the medical body. Moreover, because of the Chinese body is precious, cadaver donation for the medical body should be regarded as a noble act of giving. In some way, both the Chinese body and the medical body converge on the lack of agency for the body. In contrast to the discourses of the Chinese and the medical body, a paradoxical agency exists in the third discourse, the Buddhist body. In Buddhism, the body, kaya, is both worthless and worthy. Worthless as a bag of excrement, the locus of suffering and impermanence, and the source and the cause of temptation, desire, and of illness, aging, death. and worthy as the locus of meditation and enlightenment and the subject of veneration, such as the worship of relics. As Raoul Birnbaum points out that there should be distinction between the ordinary body, such as the uncultivated body, and the extraordinary body, such as that of a cultivated enlightened monastics. Moreover, directly relevant to the subject is the dynamics in the Buddhist genre of the gift of the body. Onuma argues that the abandoning of the worthless body as giving turns the body into something worthy, since the act of abandoning is also a particular use of the body. So in the end, it is the Buddhist organization that materializes the genre of silent mentors that could allow one to turn useless into useful. All the three bodies, the Chinese medical, the Buddhist, becomes one, that of the silent mentor. Here I close with a quote from Mr. Tsai, who came to see his father's dead body through the glass window and the curtains almost every day. His father was waiting for the glass anatomy. He answered the Hong Kong TV station whether he felt bad and sad that his father would be waiting for another 4 years. And he said calmly, "No, why should I be sad? He is going to be a teacher." Thank you. Yes, very good question. Thank you. And I should put it in my revision. Actually, Tzu Chi was, especially when it was founded, I mean, Zheng Yan kind of resisted. She actually, in earlier days, she banned her followers to chant, to hold any fa hui, so to chant any sutras, which was actually the major income for most Buddhist monastics in Taiwan. So they actually were, you can say they resisted this funeral Buddhism, and until the cadaver donations. So this probably, that's a very good point. This is probably Zheng Yan never thought about one day they would end up doing. Because this, as I participated more than once, and I started thinking, this is just another funeral, but it's much more grand, of course. But then that's why I asked the students. I said, "What do you think? You know, this is just a funeral." They said, "No, it's not real. It's not a funeral. In real funeral, you don't rehearse, and this one you rehearse meticulously." And so yes, I mean, I think this could make a very interesting point whether they eventually still espouse the role of funeral Buddhism, but I do think, I still wanted to try to think that they take it to another level, because they don't just do funeral for anybody. They're doing funeral for, to creating a new personhood, to creating something. And they only do funeral for the silent mentors. So I've never seen any other funeral Tzu Chi participated. And they never even show in public. They would come to visit their devotee privately, but they would never chant sutras for them in a funeral. To
you. Yeah, thank you. Your talk was fascinating.
Thank you.
So just to sort of follow on from Dan's question, so to have your ashes enshrined in that columbarium, you have to be a cadaver donor. Is that right?
Yes, 大舍堂, only for donors. Yeah.
And what are the advantages of doing that in terms of that enshrinement? Because as I understand it, with Fo Guangshan, for example, if you pay a certain amount, you can be enshrined in a columbarium, and then services there will be fa hui there. I mean, in perpetuity, that's the theory. So is there that kind of arrangement for this columbarium too? Or do they do other things there?
No, first, this is a very small one, only a small portion of it. I mean, I think I had a photo to show. So the rest of it, the family they have a choice of putting it in the public columbarium in Hualien or take it back. Or some take it to other part of Taiwan, some take it to United States, and some divide it to two. And so, no, they don't run columbarium, we can say that. I mean, this is thank you, this is actually a very important topic in Taiwan now, because columbarium is the major income for Zhongtai Chansi and for Guangshan, and the new 宗教法人, the new religious legal person law was one part of it, was mainly regulating this. And no, but Tzu Chi doesn't. It's not for sale. And in fact, Tzu Chi even, actually they would give money for the family, but most of they said all the money, almost all the family, they donate the money back to Tzu Chi. And so you don't get anything like for Guangshan, and only the donors will receive this commemoration.
But that commemoration is permanent in that columbarium, right?
Yes.
And do family members come back there at all? They do.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So they are running out of space, so they are building new. Even the one ash urn Tzu Chi was using only like about this size, so it's only very tiny, like one teaspoon, very small portion of the ash. And now they actually also run out of the space for the public columbarium in Hualien. So they are now promoting, actually not just Tzu Chi, entire Taiwan, they're promoting this tree burial and modeling upon Venerable Sheng Yan. And so it's, the Hualien County government, they're also building this small part of the garden and for the tree burial. And so the number kind of increased too fast, yes, yeah.
I was very interested to hear of the effect that this is having on other non-Tzu Chi, non-Buddhist hospitals and medical schools.
Mm-hmm.
I have to tell you that when I was a student, I lived with medical students for many years in the same house. We shared, houses together. And when I saw how cadavers were treated and their attitude to dissection and so on, I was horrified. And that kind of experience, made me feel that I would never want to donate my body to medical science, because I knew it would end up with people like the people that I lived with, who made jokes and did all kinds of weird and horrible things, right? But this seems to be entirely different, and the degree of respectfulness and the ceremony that goes around it seems extraordinary. Right? Mm. And I can imagine that it would catch on, right? That people would want their deceased loved ones to be treated with this kind of respect. So
exactly.
That was very interesting. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I know at this National Taiwan University has followed upon, and in the early years, Tzu Chi transferred bodies to other medical college, and under the condition that they would hold the commemoration for the donors. But it was kind of a it wasn't really as planned. Most universities end up, because Tzu Chi has so many volunteers, so end up just mobilizing local Tzu Chi volunteers, telling them to come to hold the commemoration. So then Tzu Chi stopped transferring. But you are exactly right. I mean, there's an influence somehow that there's no more university claiming or announcing any shortage in Taiwan. We don't know what happened, because it was a structure we know in 1995 when Tzu Chi founded. There was one structural reason was that was the year Taiwan launched the national health insurance. So there was no more unclaimed body, because everybody has money to go to hospital. And there was a really dire year. But then don't know somehow, like Tzu Chi, whether it was no one ever asked, or Tzu Chi did it so well, or it was the time that the other socio-cultural structure has been changing, or the older conditions for the Chinese body has been shifting, that by now there's really no more shortage of the body. But whether other university could take it to such unusual level is still a question. I saw a documentary, it was done in National Taiwan University. It was quite respectful, but nothing would be this grand. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for the lecture. So my question would be, so for years or for centuries, that Chinese try to bury their family members within one compound or in the same place. So they have to do a kind of a geomancy, try to find the right spot and try to bury everyone in the same place. How would this kind of burial practice impact the more traditional Chinese way of interment?
Thank you. Yes, that's a very insider question. The condition in Taiwan, one thing is there's no more land, especially for Taipei or northern Taipei. And there's almost no more burial. Like everybody is going to columbarium now. And it's, unless you were really tycoon, there was nobody could afford land anymore. And even if you could afford, the government just announced, just legalized that they have now taking burial by turn. I forgot it was 2 year or 5 year, and you have to be digged out and moved to a columbarium. So the condition in Taiwan, it's really, I mean, the land issue is really strenuous, and there's no more land. So now, I mean, you're right, that's very interesting, because like I grew up, I was trained as anthropologist, reading all this ancestral worship, the cult of the dead, and how this unmarried daughter, that they have to be buried outside of family, but now everybody has only one individual spot. There's no more place, and everybody is in the columbarium, and there's no more family. I mean, Longyan, one of the biggest funeral columbarium, they have a space you can buy, like all family be together and with different prices. But the one thing is that Taiwan is an immigrant society, so it doesn't have so much, the lineage or the ancestral hall, as we read like in Freeman, or I mean the Southeast China's history there. So it's, I mean, ancestral was very much a luxury for the majority of Taiwanese. And such land barrier was probably in my grandfather's generation, it was still possible. By now, it's almost impossible.
A follow-up question would be, so, for example, in the U.S., you can actually buy a place to put the urn, your own urn in the future, but you can also buy the neighboring drawers, so you can actually put the whole family into the same place. Although it is not land barrier, but it's still a kind of a family afterlife reunion. So,
Yeah.
so do this. So in the Tzu Chi Foundation, are you try to accommodate such kind of idea, or they just think it's not Buddhist? It's not a Buddhist desire to bury everyone together.
They don't. They don't allow that. They only buy random number. So like every workshop, like this workshop will go to like second floor and room B, and it's only by order. And no, they never made any arrangement. I know under the table when then they were talking about that. There were one mentor that she happened to be the wife to another mentor. Probably the workshop will happen in 2 months or 3 months, another turn, and then but they did not talk about whether their urns will be together.
I'm kind of interested in the doctors and the medical students who are involved? Are they mostly Tzu people, or I too live with some medical students as an undergraduate, and so I recognise what Paul was saying. But I always got the feeling that some of that was a kind of way of protecting themselves from the fact that these were dead people they had to deal with, and in keeping their names and knowing their families and their histories. I wonder how that affects the people doing the dissection and the students. And have you spoken to them? How does it impact on them? Is it a religious experience for them?
They said the first thing they said religion. They said, "Oh, religion is good. It helps us to understand life and death." Because every ceremony will beginning with Zheng Yan's sermon, saying her claim was death is only like every morning we wake up, every night we fall asleep, and some morning we don't wake up. That's the time we die. So you stop breathing, and that's her idea of sometime at some point you would die. And then so they said they feel kind of safer. There's a Buddhism there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are Buddhist. And that's a very good question. I was trying to ask them that. So whether this, because Tzu Chi is multimedia and they have a really tremendous way of telling you their idea of indoctrinating you into their discourse. And the student, they said, how do I phrase it? Was the last time I was there during the ceremony of viewing the face for the last time. And one lady, she was the most gregarious and most friendly from the time she arrived the afternoon before. And as soon as her husband's face was unveiled, and she just started shivering, started crying, and two commissioners in media come over to comfort her, and the two students, they were struggling to remain calm. And afterwards, I had lunch with the students and asked them, I had like my prepared question, like, how do you feel about, because the Tzu Chi would keep telling you that the student had unusual chance to perform the surgery on almost live person conditions. And the student says, he said the body itself is they're actually not that spectacular. They said the gross anatomy for them, because it was already, Tzu Chi has a way they put it in kind of a cocoon. And Professor Zhen told me that it's from Oregon University. I don't know why. He's a very few university does do it. And so they said it's not that scary. It doesn't even strike you, resonate anything as a living person. And but for the simulation, someone lying in front of you really looked like exactly a live person. And I asked him, so how would this all these things, how would it, what is the most impressive part? And they said probably like the morning when the old lady, when she lost control and crying. And I asked him, so what was it like? He said, so it reminded me that the cadaver once had a family, and their family would cry as such, had so much emotion for him. And I asked, so what does it mean? And he said, then I'll be more respectful. So in the end, it seems it wasn't like you putting so much effort in educating them, but it takes one real person, the real situation, to make the students learn like how to respect the body. And they also compare at one point after we spent like a long time talking on kind of a focus group, and then because I finally asked you, so don't you take some kind of ethic class or like a 医学社会学 something like medical sociology or something medical ethic or something? And they said in English, they said that's bullshit. They said they memorized something like a 3 Bs or something like a 3, sounds like the managers like MBA class, and they said that nothing, they didn't learn anything, but they can only learn about what to do, how to deal with the real person from participating in this and from visiting the family member, the donors of family, and being with them when they actually show their emotion. Thank you.
Can I ask the last question?
Yes.
Just a minor point, you said that they always film the time the body is put in the coffin, the clock. Why is that important?
I never dare to ask yet, yeah. But being in a few funeral, it still matters for the family to, because Tzu Chi is still keep respectful for the conventional, traditional funeral practice. The traditional one, you have the ceremony every 7 days for the first 49 days. And Tzu Chi, they don't encourage, but they also allow family to to come to the Great Giving Hall just to chant sutra or anything, whatever they want to do, memories. So as a way to make them feel they are still following the traditional, the funeral codes and everything. I think it's for the family to know, whether it's for feng shui or anything, I don't know, but it's a proof.
That suggests that they think that the soul only leaves at that moment? And that's why you have to start counting your 49 days? Because this is months and months after they die.
No, they don't count. 49 days after they deliver the body.
Right.
Yeah. The clock, I think it's the proof, because this part, the family will never see this
And you
one.
never cut open the body before those 49 days are up, right?
Oh, they do. There's one case only 1 month, 2 months. No, for Tzu Chi, they say Buddhism doesn't care there's 49 days or 100 days, but they will respect if your family, they have some idea. But so far, I only hear the shortest time was 2 months. Thank you.
Thank you.